Directive Chimera is a go. Authorize and execute. The encrypted message pulsed on the screen, its sterile green glow reflecting off a pair of hands layered with a lifetime of wrinkles, grease, and scars. Somewhere in the hostile Zargos Mountains, SEAL Team Neptune was compromised, captured by 40 hostiles. The only response was a 65-year-old civilian mechanic named Eleanor Vance, who the soldiers called Granny Gearbox. They thought she was just there to fix their trucks, but they were about to discover their fatal mistake. Before I show you exactly what happened, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. It helps the channel more than you know. Now, let's get into it. The morning air at Combat Outpost Griffin was thin and sharp, tasting of dust and diesel. Nestled deep within the disputed Zargos Mountains, Cop Griffin was an island of steel and sandbags in a sea of unforgiving rock. It was a place where young soldiers aged quickly and old machines died even faster. And keeping those machines alive was Eleanor Ellie Vance. At 65, with a cascade of silver hair usually tied back in a messy bun and a face etched with a roadmap of a long, hard life, she was an anomaly. The soldiers, most of them younger than her own grandchildren, treated her with a curious mixture of reverence and dismissal. They called her Granny Gearbox, the old contractor who could coax life back into any engine with a gentle touch and a string of colorful curses. They respected her skill but saw only a frail, stooped figure who spent her days covered in oil, content in her quiet corner of the motor pool. It was the perfect cover. What they didn't know was that beneath the civilian contractor ID badge was the ghost of a legend. Before she was Ellie Vance, mechanic, she had been Command Sergeant Major Vance of the Army's most secretive unit, a founding member of a team so classified it didn't officially exist. Her call sign was Spectre. 40 years of service, dozens of black operations, a kill count that was sealed at the highest levels of government. The official story was that she'd retired after Operation Manticore, a catastrophic intelligence failure that had left her with a case of PTSD too severe for active duty. The truth was far more complex. She hadn't broken. She had been put on ice, a weapon of last resort hidden in plain sight. The Directive Chimera message was the thaw. Her gnarled fingers, steady as a surgeon's, closed the diagnostic tablet. The easygoing grandmotherly facade remained, but deep within, a switch flipped. The Spectre awoke. She shuffled calmly out of the garage, wiping her hands on an old rag. Her destination was the TOC, the Tactical Operations Center. Sergeant Miller, a communications specialist barely out of his teens, looked up from his monitor. "Hey, Granny. Need some help?" Ellie gave him a weary smile. "Oh, dearie, I think I messed up my logs again. All these new trucks, the wear and tear is just dreadful. My quarterly report is going to be a mess. Could I just peek at last night's patrol summaries? Just to cross-reference the vehicle hours." Miller hesitated. "That's classified, Ellie." She leaned on the console, her voice taking on a slightly confused tone. "Oh, heavens, I'm not looking for secrets. Just the vehicle numbers and their run times. Major Evans will have my hide if my maintenance projections are off again. You know how he gets." The sergeant sighed, swayed by the image of a flustered old woman trying to navigate bureaucracy. He pulled up a redacted summary. Ellie's eyes, sharp and clear, scanned the data feeds, ignoring everything but the single line that made her blood run cold. SEAL Team Neptune. Recon mission. Status. 8 hours no contact. Last known coordinates deep in hostile territory. Captured. She patted Miller's shoulder. "Thank you, sweetie. You're a lifesaver." As she walked away, her mind was already a whirlwind of tactical calculations. Back in the motor pool, she found Major Evans, the base commander. "Major, sir, I hate to bother you, but the transmission on that lead MRAP is shot. The part of special order have to drive out to the supply depot at FOB Kodiak to get them myself. Might be an overnight trip if they don't have it in stock." Evans, buried in paperwork, barely looked up. "Fine, Ellie. Just get it done." He signed a vehicle requisition form without a second thought. He had just authorized a one-woman war. The HEMTT cargo truck rumbled through the main gate of COP Griffin, its massive tires kicking up clouds of ochre dust. The young guard in the tower gave a lazy wave. It was just Granny Gearbox heading out for parts. Nothing to see here. Once the base was a shimmering mirage in her rearview mirror, Ellie pulled the behemoth of a truck into a rocky alcove, hidden from the main road. The transformation began. With the press of a hidden button, a section of the cargo bed floor hissed open, revealing not spare parts, but a gleaming arsenal nestled in custom-cut foam. This wasn't standard-issue military hardware. This was a curated collection of a master's tools, each piece modified and maintained to perfection over decades. There was a classic 416 Hong Kong dollars, its weight familiar in her hands, fitted with a custom stock and advanced optics. A Remington 700 sniper rifle, its barrel free-floated, its action glass-bedded, a tool capable of surgical precision at 1,000 yards. She stripped off the greasy coveralls. Underneath, she wore not the clothes of a grandmother, but a form-fitting, dark gray tactical suit, custom-made to support an older frame while allowing for maximum flexibility. Her silver hair was expertly braided and coiled tightly against her head. She pulled on specialized combat boots with sound-dampening soles. The final piece was a lightweight helmet with integrated communications and a state-of-the-art night vision system. As she lowered the NVG mount over her eyes, the face that looked back in the truck's small mirror was no longer Ellie Vance, the friendly mechanic. It was the Spectre. The wrinkles were still there, but they now framed eyes that held the cold, hard clarity of a predator. The age in her face was a deceptive mask for the lethal purpose that now burned within. She drove for another hour, then ditched the truck in a pre-planned location, covering it with camouflage netting. The rest of the journey was on foot. The Zargos Mountains were brutal terrain, a vertical world of jagged peaks and treacherous scree slopes that would challenge a soldier half her age. But Ellie moved through it with an unnatural grace. She didn't rely on speed or strength, but on a lifetime of experience. Her steps were deliberate, silent, her path chosen with an instinct that read the landscape like a map. She became a shadow, flowing over the rocks, indistinguishable from the encroaching darkness. After 2 hours of silent, arduous climbing, she reached her overwatch position, 800 meters from the target. The enemy compound was a converted Soviet-era mining facility, a natural fortress carved into the mountainside. Through her rifle scope, her mind absorbed the tactical picture with chilling efficiency. 40 hostiles, members of the Zargos Martyrs Brigade, well-trained, well-armed. Guard towers at each corner with overlapping fields of fire. Roving patrols. Technicals, pickup trucks with heavy machine guns, positioned at key choke points. It was a death trap. A conventional assault would be a suicide mission, a bloody failure. But Ellie wasn't planning a conventional assault. For a full 30 minutes, she didn't move, her breathing slow and even. She was observing, calculating, mapping the fortress's pulse. She identified patrol patterns, communication arrays, fuel depots, and the one building, heavily guarded and reinforced, where they would be holding the seals. The enemy had built a fortress. The Spectre had come to turn it into a tomb. The assault began not with a bang, but with a whisper. Under the sliver of a new moon, Ellie descended from her perch, moving like smoke across the broken ground. Her first target was the compound's power generator, located 200 meters downhill from the main facility, watched by a single board guard. She approached from his blind spot, her movements so economical they were almost imperceptible. The guard never heard the whisper of her boots on the gravel. A swift, precise strike with her combat knife, leveraging his own weight against him. It was over before his brain could register the attack. He was dragged into the shadows, a silent prelude to the chaos to come. A block of C4 was placed on the generator's fuel line. Next, she circled the perimeter, her eyes identifying the weakest point, a section of fence obscured by a natural rock outcropping. 2 guards patrolled this area, their route sloppy and predictable. She waited in the deep shadow of a boulder. As the first guard passed, she emerged behind him, a phantom in the dark. A silenced pistol shot, a soft cough of compressed air, was all it took. The second guard turned at the sound of his partner slumping to the ground, only to be met with a second, fatal whisper. She was inside, moving with the patient stealth of a wolf in a sheepfold. She planted her remaining charges. The main communications tower, a large fuel depot next to the vehicle pool, the base of the primary guard tower. Each placement was a carefully chosen note in the symphony of destruction she was about to conduct. Finally, she took position near the reinforced building where the SEALs were being held, confirming their presence through a small, barred window. They were alive. That was all that mattered. At precisely 23:47, she pressed the primary detonator. The generator exploded, plunging the entire compound into absolute, terrifying darkness. Before the emergency lights could flicker on, the second series of charges detonated in a devastating chain reaction. The communications tower erupted in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. The fuel depot went up in a massive fireball that momentarily turned night into day, silhouetting the panicked figures of enemy fighters pouring out of their barracks. The main guard tower groaned, then collapsed in a cloud of concrete dust. Chaos reigned. In the disorienting, strobing effect of the fire against the pitch black, the militants were blind and deaf. But for Ellie, wearing her night vision gear, the darkness was an ally. The world was a stage of green and black, and she was the director. As enemy fighters scrambled to form a defensive line, she began her work. Her 416 Hong Kong dollars, fitted with a suppressor, spoke in quiet, methodical bursts. A guard on a rooftop, gone. A machine gun team trying to set up, neutralized. Men shouting orders into dead radios, silenced. She moved through the burning chaos, not like a soldier, but like a force of nature, an avenging angel of death. Every shot was a kill. Every movement had a purpose. She wasn't fighting a battle. She was systematically dismantling a hornet's nest, one hornet at a time. The fortress had become her killing field. The remaining fighters, driven by instinct, had formed a ragged perimeter around the prison building. They fired blindly into the darkness, their muzzle flashes painting brilliant, fleeting targets for the Spectre. Ellie eliminated the exterior guards with the cold efficiency of an accountant balancing a ledger. She didn't assault the front door, where they expected her. Instead, she placed a small breaching charge on a sidewall. The explosion was a sharp crack that blew a man-sized hole in the concrete. Before the dust even began to settle, she was through the gap, rifle at the ready. For guards inside, caught completely by surprise, went down in a 3-second burst of controlled, precise fire. In the dim light of a single emergency lamp, Lieutenant Commander Thorne of SEAL Team Neptune looked up from the floor where he was bound. His face was bruised, his uniform torn, but his eyes widened in utter disbelief at the figure standing over him. Granny. Gearbox. Ellie pulled out her combat knife. "Time for an oil change, son," she said, her voice a low, calm rasp as she sliced through his restraints. She freed the other 5 SEALs, distributed weapons and ammunition taken from the dead guards, and began rapid battlefield triage on their wounds. "What's the situation?" Thorne asked, wincing as she expertly dressed a gash on his arm. 40 hostiles, now approximately 0. Compound neutralized. We need to move before the neighbors get curious. Thorne stared at her, then at the carnage outside. "You did this? Alone?" Ellie just handed him a rifle. "Can you fight?" He nodded, his eyes filled with a new kind of awe. "Then, let's go home." Their exfiltration was a running gun battle. The few remaining militants put up a desperate, final stand at the main gate. Ellie laid down a brutally effective field of covering fire, her rifle spitting flame and lead, allowing the SEALs to break through. They reached her hidden HEMTT as the sounds of distant approaching vehicles echoed through the mountains. The ride back was a bone-jarring, high-speed flight through treacherous mountain roads. Inside the cab, the SEALs were silent, stealing glances at the old woman who drove with the intense focus of a rally car driver, her wrinkled hands steady on the wheel. Back at COP Griffin, she drove them directly to the medical bay and disappeared. As medics swarmed over his team, Thorne caught up to her just as she was about to slip back into the motor pool. "Ellie, I don't understand." She paused, turning her face, once again just a tired old mechanic. "Some old machines, Lieutenant," she said softly. "You just need old-school tools to fix them." The next morning, she was back under the hood of an MRAP, covered in grease. 2 days later, a black, unmarked helicopter landed. Out stepped General Webb, a man whose face was only seen in the deepest, most secure corridors of the Pentagon. He was her former commander. In a secure briefing room, he laid it all out. The world was getting messy, eh? Official channels were too slow, too political. A new network was being activated. A ghost network. Retired operators, the best of the best, embedded in non-combat roles all over the world. Mechanics, cooks, supply clerks. Invisible. Deniable. Ready. Directive Chimera was the test, Spectre, Webb said. To see if the concept worked. To see if you still had it. Ellie looked at the global map on the screen, dotted with a dozen new potential hotspots. "So, I'm not retired?" Webb smiled grimly. "Good mechanics are never really off the clock. They're just waiting for something to break." Ellie nodded slowly, a quiet acceptance settling over her. Her war wasn't over. It had just gone undercover. This wasn't just the story of an old soldier's return. It was a testament to a powerful truth. True strength isn't found in youthful muscle or fleeting bravado, but in the quiet depths of experience, wisdom, and an unyielding sense of duty. It reminds us that in the most unexpected corners of our world, true guardians walk among us, their greatness hidden not by cloaks and daggers, but by wrinkles and work clothes. Have you ever profoundly underestimated someone based on their age or appearance? What would you have thought, watching that chaos unfold, knowing a 65-year-old grandmother was the cause? Do you believe there are people like Ellie in our society, quiet heroes with extraordinary pasts, living seemingly ordinary lives? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We respect all opinions and discussions here. If this story reminded you that heroes come in all ages and sizes, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about the hidden warriors among us. Share this with someone you know who is far more than they appear on the surface. We read every single comment, and your voice matters to our community. More stories about legendary soldiers and impossible missions are waiting for you on your screen right now. Watch those next, and we'll see you tomorrow with a mind-blowing true story about a spy who played both sides of the Cold War and came out on top.